Alright, so here we have the Flef Toys 7-inch Murdock, obviously Daredevil. This is the 1/4 scale NECA figure shrunk down. Never heard of Flef Toys. Pretty cool to have this as an offering. They also have a black version like the Shadowland paint job as well, but I just wanted to stick with the tried and true red. If you want to read the back of the box, turn it that way. This came from AliExpress. Took about, I believe, like 10 days from France. It's not terrible, but I haven't seen anyone post pictures or a video review for this guy yet, so I figured I'll just go ahead and do it myself. So let's take a look at what all is going on here. He does have some butterfly joints, but as you can see, it doesn't really give you a whole lot of range of motion. The joints do feel sturdy. I would say the arms, just be careful when you're bending them because they look like a little flexible, and the last thing you want to do is snap one of those arms at the elbows. They are double jointed. Come up to right there, not too bad. The hinge and swivel joints on the wrists are ratcheted, which I think is a little interesting. I kind of like that. He's got a ball joint in the upper torso and in the hips, so he can definitely crunch forward and backwards quite a bit. There's a little gapping at the top of the torso, but nothing too terrible. Range on the head is pretty good. He's got quite a bit of tilt, as you can see. You can look up not terribly far. You can look down pretty decent. I don't know if you'd really need him to look down much further than that. I think for me, where it's a little disappointing in terms of the articulation is the hips, because they're not drop down, and there's a swivel you can see like in the leg on the joint itself, but yeah, you're not kicking forward too far. The crotch piece it's a little flexible, so you can, yeah, like you're not really going that far. There's a little gappage too that you just kind of have to play around with posing. You can kick out sideways quite a decent amount, but yeah, you might want to put some shock oil or something in the hips. They're a little squeaky, but yeah, when it comes to like, your acrobatic poses, getting that hip, kind of Spider-Man up, you just gotta finagle it a little bit. If you turn that hip, you can see you can get it forward pretty decently. It's just, playing with it a little bit, and you want to probably be a little careful what you're doing with that crotch piece, because you don't want to stretch it out, putting them in a dynamic pose for a while and then ruin it. I feel like if you put it in some hot water, you could get it to go back to form if you have it in a dynamic pose for a while and something happens. But also, yeah, obviously double jointed. Knees, it's clashing with the calf there and the thigh, but not too bad. It kind of feels like the ankles ratcheted, not nearly as much as the wrists though. And then there is, quote unquote, if you want to be technical, toe articulation, but it crashes into this guard, so it's pretty minuscule. You're not you're not getting too much there. But nice to have it. Better something than nothing. One other thing that I think is really cool is the holster for the billy clubs. There's like a little peg right here. So if you move it up, it'll basically like hinge on the belt with the articulation, which really helps with posing. And then you just gotta play with it a little bit, but the strap on the thigh, you can move around too. But yeah, I thought that was pretty nice. Glad it's not just like one piece that you have to fight with when posing. For accessories, he comes with 3 additional groups of hands. You got your splayed out, kind of like throwing the billy club, flying through the air hands, just normal fists. Anyway, you can tell on the figure it's got really good shading, all in like the little crevice, great gradients on the hips and the musculature on the arms and the torso. Nice black wash. The paint on the face, it's got a gloss to it, but it's not terrible. It feels like there's more of a gloss on the lips, which I actually kind of like. There's a gray, I would say gradient, or maybe a small like white brush. I don't really know, but I think it's trying to emulate a light 5 o'clock shadow, which I think really works, especially for a character like Daredevil. Even the straps on the back of the boots and the buckles. Yeah, it's just so much attention to detail here. The only thing that's truly like has no paint is the butterfly joints, which again it's not really that big of a deal. But yeah, so the weird thing is, I'm talking about the hands. He comes with these gripping hands already on, and the pinkies are like curled up back there. But he does come with another pair that's just normal. So I thought that's a little interesting to have 2 different styles of gripping hands. Never gonna complain about having hands though. Throw as many hands in with a figure as you want. Also comes with a unmasked head. I don't see myself using this a whole lot. Looks kind of like James Marsden. Let's try to get it. There we go. Not terrible. Not super great either. Looks like he's going maybe ever so slightly cross-eyed, but it could just be me. Yeah, maybe you could use this for a different figure you wanted. It looks like his eyes might be like a little bluish silver, maybe to emulate, him being blind. Kind of interesting that they went with brown hair instead of red. I honestly can't remember if the NECA figure had red hair or not, but yeah, nice to have. Probably won't use it though. And then lastly, the Billy Cub accessories. The only thing that I think is not coming with that the original NECA release did come with was like a cowl down accessory to use with the unmasked head, which, I mean, it would be cool, but not necessarily needed. So it looks like you have the Billy Clubs, obviously. It looks like each one of them has little peg holes for putting in the 2 bendy wire accessories. There's also like an elongated pole, which I think you just plug into, just plug into one of them. So it's like shooting it out into a cane. I don't know if it's supposed to necessarily simulate like a cane walking stick type thing, or if it's just to make a longer club like he sometimes has. And then he has 2 different bendy wires. One is to connect the 2, obviously to, just make them connected like you see in the comics all the time. But then another one, which I think this one's kind of interesting because you don't see this with a whole lot of Daredevil figures, is a grappling hook. So I thought that was pretty neat. The wires aren't super long. As you can see, you're probably looking at, maybe you can't see. You're probably looking at maybe 10 inches tall if you're comparing it to the size of the figure there. Sorry about all the focus issues, but yeah, pretty cool. Grappling hook, you don't see that a whole lot, and it looks to be simple enough. I guess technically you'd probably want to put the port sides on top. I will say, as you can see right away, like the gripping hands that they come with, well, I guess maybe you're supposed to tuck the billy club into the pinky. I think that's a little interesting that he's not really holding it with his hand. He's really holding it. He's just gripping it with his pinky. I think that's a little interesting. Let's try swapping it out for the other set of grip hands. The hands feel pretty rubbery, so yeah, shouldn't be hard to swap them out for another pair. And yep, just go right in. All right, let's try this again. I would use the other hands. Maybe you can interchange. You can have one with just that kung fu pinky grip, and then just use a normal one on another. But yeah, I think I prefer just the gripping hands that come in the box. I think that looks a lot better. Let's see, I'm gonna swap that out. Yeah, I think that looks great. I'm pretty sure the NECA figure, kind of like the Sideshow 1/6 scale, it's not necessarily from a certain run of the books. I think it's their own design, which, I don't know, some people have their feelings about Daredevil having a bunch of armor on him. I think it's cool to have different styles because this is a character that's been through a lot. He's had many different runs and he's done a lot of different stuff, so it's cool to see him in different armor styles, especially when it's versions of the red. Yeah, if there's one thing that I really do like about this figure, it's the paint for sure. Another thing I want to add is I am pretty sure that the Double D logo is glued. It's a separate piece glued onto the torso. I don't want to mess with it too much because if I'm right in that, then I definitely don't want it to start peeling up. But I definitely would say that it is a separate piece. We can do some scaling comparisons real quick. Unfortunately, I don't have any McFarlane DC Universe figures, or DC Multiverse, sorry. But I do have one offering from McFarlane that I think will be pretty good for a size comparison. So this is their unpainted just Space Marine. I have some custom parts that I bought off of Etsy like 3 years ago. I always wanted to paint them up, never did, but you can see they're about the same height. It almost looks like, yeah, I would say they're exactly the same height. So, sorry, that's not a McFarlane Batman, but do with that what you will. I think that he would actually scale really well with a McFarlane Batman, which would be cool. You know, they've linked up in the comics before, so it's not necessarily the newest thing. And I think it'd be really cool to have, you know, both Batman and Daredevil swinging with their grappling hooks. I think that would be really cool. But I think what probably most people are wanting to see is how this guy scales next to the Mafex Daredevil, because everyone, probably myself included, would argue that that is the greatest Daredevil figure of all time. So, and as you can see, they're different scales. They weren't meant to scale together. Yeah, it's just, I can't stress enough just how good the shade work on this guy is. If there's one thing that I've always kind of felt about the Mezco, it has its shading. You can see in the pockets of the abs and the upper torso and the arms. There's like a little bit of a black wash, but I've always felt it's decently flat, which it's supposed to be interchangeable between kind of like original run Daredevil and kind of 80s Born Again. So it works for that. This is just obviously not that whatsoever. Very, I would say, it feels very early 2000s. This feels like something that you'd see during the Affleck time. Maybe that's just me, but that's the way I feel. It's got really just the paint. You can see the little rivets on the shoulder, the bicep, even up near the collarbone, all painted that metallic silver. You got the scratches on the knee pads, also on these like shin guards, the silver paint on the arm guards, even on the belt. Yeah, I'm excited to put this guy through his paces, see what all poses I can get him in. I wanted to show him real quick in a dynamic pose, just something really quick, not too much time spent on him, but he can hit those kind of flying through the air poses that you want. You just got to put a little bit of work in. Another thing that I didn't talk about earlier, I don't know if it comes across on camera necessarily, but there's even like a really good wash on the bottom of the boots. It doesn't really come up on camera, but it's kind of like a gray-brown wash, but just, you know, that attention to detail, even going down to the bottom of the shoes that unless you're doing poses like this, which obviously I am, so I'm thankful for it. Normally you just wouldn't even see that. So I just want to show off. I will say, the number one thing that's really going to suck about this guy, and it'll just take some messing with, getting used to, obviously, I find the other sets of hands, if you're messing around with them too much, can pop off. They just pop right back on, so it's not a big deal. But I will say the billy clubs, the connection between the wire and them, like you saw how easy I pulled that off. It's literally just boop. So that's one thing you'll be fighting too when you're trying to pose the bendy wire around. The billy clips just falling off on the floor, trying not to lose them. And for anyone wondering, this is the Mafex Hush Batman shield, or stand, sorry. But yeah, just wanted to make sure I showed an example of that. Talked about those couple other points. Very happy to have him. One final thing I'll say about this guy is you might want to stick him in some soapy water before messing him with him too much, or at least mess with them and then wash your hands. I feel like you got a very gasoline type smell opening up the box. And you never know these days, getting these bootleg figures from AliExpress, what exactly they're painted with or where they're made. So just make sure to be careful. But yeah, definitely happy to have them. You can check out my Instagram. I'll put the link in the description below for that. I'll get them posted up, take some cool photos. But yeah, appreciate you guys checking this out, and hope this was good for informing your purchase. I'm happy to have them. It's a little expensive. I think you get a deal if you make a new AliExpress account. You should be able to shave some dollars off. And I think the store itself had an $8 coupon to use for it. So I'll put the link to the figure itself in the description too, because as far as I can tell, there's only one link for this guy. Normally with, you know, CT toys and stuff, they're all over the place, but I can only find one link for this guy, so it must be either the distributor for this company, or it might be the company themselves sometimes. I know CT Toys has their official, unofficial AliExpress shop for their stuff, but alright, I think that about does it. Appreciate you checking it out.